Welcome to another episode of the I Don't Know What This Is podcast, where we cover anything and everything related to sports nutrition, dietary supplements, soon to be college football, and everything in between. My name is Robert Chinesky, the supplement engineer. Joining me, Justin Hall, supplement Snoop, and two-time stacked brand of the year owner, Robert Samborski of Apollo Nutrition. Welcome, Jen.
Hey,
Don't
guys.
forget to put that in there.
You like that little ego boost, Robbie?
That's important. He didn't know how to introduce, but he did a phenomenal job.
Robert, they are the Georgia of the supplement space right now.
Ooh.
Georgia's the back-to-back champions. Apollon is
true.
the back-to-back champions. We're on the eve of college football next week. I'm excited.
Next Sunday, us against the stepchildren in your state, Justin, or your favorite team, FSU.
Oh, that's right. So Miami plays Miami of Ohio next Friday night, because then they play Texas A&M the following week. That'll be the big one.
Yep.
So they warm up with Miami of Ohio, but I forgot about that. You guys need to kick the shit out of Florida State, please.
We need payback last year after we shit the bed in the dome.
Their recruiting is doing way too good right now, man. We need you.
Yeah, we'll get them. And as long as y'all skull drag the Aggies, I'll be happy.
All right, so what the hell are we going to talk about here today, guys?
Well, first of all, where are you standing with your line? I mean, been a couple of weeks. I mean, we're taking these breaks, but I mean, we are all so busy, and to line up our schedules, he's a fucking bitch. But we're finally here, so let us know what's going on.
Well, the funny thing. Well, I appreciate you asking, because the funny thing is since I mentioned that I wanted to launch this product and started it, you've launched 14 or 15. You're just making me look like an idiot, because people are like, what's taking you so long, man? Robbie launches a new product every 3 days. I'm like, you know how hard it is to get to that point? So we did a really extensive sampling process. I sent out because this product is just a little bit different than a lot of things in our space right now.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So far, you're starting with one product?
Yeah, just one.
Okay.
I have a lot of plans. I'm trying to keep myself from doing too much, at the same time. But we did a lot of sampling with this one. And then, so we got really good feedback. We got some feedback that I never expected, to be honest. A lot of really good positive feedback. And Robert, him and I talked about this too. Is like, sometimes, we make these formulas and we have a decent idea of what's going to happen, but you don't really know until you get it out there sometimes. And people are like telling me this feedback, and I'm like, I could pretend like I knew that was going to happen, but I'd be lying.
Yeah, but the thing is like, and the reason why I asked you, because you said product, so I wanted just to clarify for people that are listening. It's one product, because honestly, I don't think anything wrong with one product. I think we started with two products, which is also, I mean, I don't think you have to come off and with 20 different products right off the bat. You're kind of getting started. And I know that this particular product is kind of close to heart. So it's something that you wanted to start with, and you can have one successful product, and then you can come up with the rest. But I mean, I understand. And sampling, it also, I believe, well, number one, it's formulated, I believe, by you. So I mean, you have knowledge, you have the experience, and you know exactly what you want for your product and the target market, obviously. So I think that, honestly, you know what? I haven't seen the formula, but I would take a wild guess and say that it's definitely going to work in terms of like when it comes, because mental health, nootropics, and those lines, it affects people differently. So sometimes the feedback is going to be not what you expect, in terms of not necessarily bad, but it might give something that that you didn't expect. I know, for example, we have overtime, right? And that particular product hits differently. Different people report different experiences. So that is to be expected. I think that's totally normal.
Yeah, and I think that's because this one, I tried to hit sort of an area where the one thing that was really surprising to me was I knew that people that weren't used to using supplements or nootropics, I knew I didn't want to make it too strong for them, right? Because you don't want to freak them out. Like if I give it to my mom, I send out samples to like my parents, her parents, lots of people like outside of our people that normally use supplements, and you can always add more, right? So I didn't want to make something that was like overly strong. It's cost effective. We want to keep the price down. But what I was really surprised at is how many people that are really used to supplements, including myself, feel so much from this product. I expected people to just be like, "Oh, whatever," because you're used to using nootropics. But people like that have lots of experience with supplementation are really seeing a lot of benefits from it and a lot of things. Because there was a couple layers to it, to like what you were saying about like where we at here, where we had to kind of go back and forth a little bit on the labels because brain health, there is some, you don't want to get too in the weeds about claims, and we had to go through a lot of compliance layers. There's two ingredients that I haven't shown everyone. They're the last two ingredients of the formula. There's one that's, I don't want to overplay it, the game changing type thing, but no one's used this particular ingredient yet in this space. It's something that's really, really cool. And then the other one, for people that don't know this, because this is something that you would know, but a lot of people would never guess this. I wanted to get everything into one pill because a lot of the customers were going after here, it's like one pill, one a day kind of thing. So we had to get a incredible standardization of one ingredient that I haven't shown in order to fit it into one pill. Because if we start going with like a 50% kind of standardization, next thing you know, it doesn't all fit into one capsule. So we've been doing a little bit back and forth. But anyway, the labels, I believe, have been printed as of like yesterday or today, so they can go right to the manufacturer. We have that one ingredient that I said I think is the first time I've ever seen it. I didn't even know it was available until we made this formula. It's actually an upgrade. I wanted one ingredient in the formula, and Joey from Glaxon found this upgraded version, and I was like, wow, that's sweet. So it's a little bit more difficult, like, where you have more communication, more layers of compliance when you use different trademark ingredients. Everyone's got their emails and their communication and their delays. So, I think that's one thing that most people look at pollen formulas and they go, man, these are crazy, these are awesome, and they want more and more and more and more, which I get. But one thing that you do that people probably don't appreciate is because when you take these trademark ingredients and all this stuff from all these different companies, a lot has to go together all at once. If you use generic forms, there's nothing wrong if you want to use generic, trademark, whatever. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. But you have all these other layers of communication and compliance and stuff that can go wrong when you take the approach like that you and like Jeff and say Ben or stuff does.
Well, I think that, what I mean, you touched upon the fact that, one pill, cost effective, all these things, they play, or your mom, for example, to be able to take it, if you loaded it with, I don't know, like 20,000 milligram of something, obviously you wouldn't give it to your mom. So I think what certain people, I'm not going to say all people, but certain people fail to understand is that certain products hit certain markets and certain groups of people. And it's not necessarily that one product is worse than the other one. I mean, sure, we have some pretty shitty products on the market. We have, probably 90% of them that are either ineffective or just, the formula is all over the place or something like that, and sometimes when people look at cost effective, they're not looking at cost effective for the consumer. They're looking at cost effective for themselves, making cheap garbage that just doesn't work. So I think that this is exactly where people don't understand the concept. We have men, women, teenagers. We have people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, people with heart condition, people that are in their 60s or 70s or 80s, and all these groups can take supplements. All these groups can take something to benefit them, whether it's for athletic performance or for health or for whatnot. And I think that this is where people say, oh, this is the best product on the market, or this is the best, or this is game changing. There is no such thing. At the end of the day, it's who is your consumer? What is the purpose for your product? So when you develop something, and I'm sure you've done it because of your experience within the industry, where you go, I want to make this type of product for this type of of consumer. And once you identify Then it comes to formulation. Then it comes to all these aspects. Obviously, you're not gonna, and in terms of cost effective, you're not gonna make Ferrari for an average consumer. There's a very, very small niche of people that can afford it, and God bless them, great. But there is a majority of country that that can afford probably something like Kia. And does it make the car a bad vehicle? No, it's not. It's not a bad car at all. It's just cost effective. It's something that people can afford, and it will take them from point A to point B, just like Ferrari will. So I think that these are all things that sometimes are not taken into consideration. And I liked the fact that you touched upon this when you said cost effective, when you said one pill convenience or something like that, because all these things can be identified and they can work. It's just how you approach it, how you formulate it, how you approach the whole process. And I think that that's the main thing. We had somebody at the gym recently, and this guy comes to me, and he's a pretty well-known individual. He's IB professional athlete, and he said, "Well, Apollon has too many pre-workouts," and I said, "Okay, I can agree with that." But then the next thing is, well, they all the same. And I was like, hold on a second. I mean, they definitely, in fact, there's nothing, maybe they share a common ingredient here or there, or two ingredients, or even three ingredients, but you can't tell me that Bloodsport is exactly the same as Assassin.
Right.
It's a completely different approach. One is targeting a specific group of people. The other one is targeting a specific group of people. Can they coexist? Absolutely, they can coexist. Just like the nootropics or health, brain health formulas that, for example, you're coming with right now. You have to identify your marketing. If it's something that you want your parents to use, obviously you have to approach it from their perspective. And guess what? There are many people like your parents. So from a business perspective and to help people, that's not a wrong approach. Just maybe not going to be something that somebody else wants.
Yeah, and that was what was surprising me about this, because it's kind of like Apollon is a good example of this too. If you try to please everyone, right, you ultimately please no one, because you have no direction to the formula. And that was what surprised me so much about this, because I was like, okay, I can use, say, 8 different ingredients in here, and I can make each one really, really cool, and I can make them, they all go together, right? Because like just that text message you shared with everyone from Tim, where he was like, if you use, because I think people, and rightfully so, people used to use synergy and shit like that to just underdose products, and they say, well, they work together,
Yeah,
so they make the other
absolutely.
ones better. And you're like, no, but there
That's
are
why I
some
hate that word
things.
synergy, because most of the time it's basically it's the same thing. It's what I call synergy, a new proprietary blend.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And when you get into, especially with like brain chemistry, it gets so weird so fast, where sometimes going a higher dosage actually can make you feel a little bit off, like have the undesired effect. So I wanted this to be, so anyway, a long way of saying, the way I put it together at first was, let's see how this goes, because like I said, you can always add more stuff, you can always do this, but you don't want to have it and that was what surprised me, is the people that it was myself. Now granted, I was like, I don't want to have it be like a placebo effect. I know I'm excited to use it, right? But the first time I took it, I was like, this is feels way different than I expected, because I'm used to this stuff. But I noticed it immediately. And like I said, I had a lot of people within this space that are used to using supplements, and they're like, this is, we really notice this. And I was like, okay. So it was justification, it was validation of okay, I think I had all these like hypotheses where I'm like, if I put this with this, we can make a cost-effective formula still really cool.
Of
And
course,
it
yes.
won't,
And
and it
I mean,
won't. And,
the fact that you were willing for industry insiders and for your friends, obviously people from within the industry, to try a product before releasing a product, that just goes to show that you actually care about, the end result. Will it be effective? That's what I called research. I mean, you've done your research in terms of, you wanted feedback from people that are obviously experienced in the field, and you wanted to see how they're going to react to it, how they're going to feel, and what feedback they're going to give you.
yeah, actually, because I sent like my parents, for example, like a couple months worth, because I was like, I want to see how this feels using it every day for like a few months. I'm a little bummed that I sent them so much because now I don't have any left. And I really actually do miss using it. And the one thing I also wanted to do is also knowing people in our space, we love to use all kinds of stuff. I didn't want to put things in there that stopped you from using your favorite pollen products, or because like one of the first things people were asking me is like, well, how does your product compare to like a Pro, Pollen, Morphogens?
It doesn't, and it's not supposed to.
Well, so the funny thing is I was like, there's actually not one ingredient in my product that those guys use in theirs, and it's not better or worse or anything like that, but you can use them all together if you want to. And that was really the balance that I wanted to go for here, is like, I hate when I get a supplement from a company that I think is cool, but I can't really use it because they put too much stuff in there. Sometimes the dosages are too high. And if I use like my regular supplement routine, I'm like, you know what? I don't really think I can fit this in, kind of thing. And, sometimes it gets, I didn't want to do that either, but I'm really excited about this. It's really.
You say that the product is something that you would recommend people using on a daily basis as a multivitamin or something like that to help them on a daily basis, or is it something to use sporadically as needed?
So that's actually how it's marketed, is a multivitamin for the brain.
Okay, so that's fair enough. And like I said, there is always misconception as to how to use certain products, and something that Ben said recently, and I really actually liked it. He did a video where he said that about his pre-workout. He said that, yeah, you know what, this is a basic formula. It's very, very simple, but it works. And I think that this is there is a huge argument. Should you use only 2-3 ingredients? Should you use one ingredient, or should you use what people call a kitchen sink? And I say there is no such thing as a specific formula as to how to formulate products. Yes, you can use a kitchen sink as long as you put the ingredients properly, and not necessarily synergetically, but they actually come together and they work together and they're beneficial. So yes, you can do it as long as, and somebody like you, somebody like Robert, somebody who can understand, can read the label and say like, okay, this is put together pretty well. The assassin question. We're targeting to release it on September 15th. I mean, that's the plan so far. So I think that when it comes to products, you can put together a product that has 2-3 ingredients, and it's going to be super effective, and it's going to deliver on what it's supposed to. And then you can put together something that has 15 different ingredients, and that can still work. But at the same time, you can put a product with 2-3 ingredients that doesn't do shit, and we know those they exist. And the same thing, you can throw, like you said, people say that, these ingredients work synergetically. They underdose the crap out of everything. They put together a laundry list of 15, 20 ingredients. Obviously, it's not going to work. And the whole synergy, that's just, you're saying, oh, look, I have an open label. I have a transparent label. But you know what? Some of the formulas, when I look at them, I'm like, I wish you could put it in a proprietary blend because you're embarrassing yourself.
I say that all the time. I was like, when people ask me about formulas, sometimes on my Instagram sticker, I'll bring up the formula on my computer and I'll go over it. And there's times where I'm like, you know what? They should have proprietary blends. I appreciate the transparency that they're going for, but sometimes maybe you should be like, it's just funny to hear you and I say things like that, because I'm like, maybe you should be less transparent.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I would be totally okay with it, because if I see a fully transparent label and I see, I don't know, 100, 200 milligram of tyrosine, I'm like, who is this product for? I mean, what is 100, 200 milligram of tyrosine gonna do? Or I see something like 25 milligram of dicaffeine malate. I'm like, who is it, like for fucking teenager, or is it like for a toddler? Because what is 25 milligram of dicaffeine malate is gonna do for you? You know what I mean? It just makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm like, put it in a proprietary blend, at least I'll understand.
Well, and one thing that I think that tying in Morphogen, we talk about Morphogen like Pro, you guys a lot, because you guys have a similar like approach. But I think because people will say, oh, Assassin's got another version, Hooligan's got another version, like Pro just released a new version of theirs, and now people are like, oh, Morphogen's coming out with, well, going back to Morphogen's last version of his pre-workout, that was the one where he went 10 grams of tyrosine, and he went like a lot of like things that other people weren't doing, because there's not a whole lot you can do in the pre-workout that someone hasn't done yet. But so he tried to do some things, and it worked. Like the pre-workout was good, but it didn't have the desired effect on his entire customer base that he intended. So he moved some ingredients in and out, and then he lowered the price of the product by like $8. So he was really just making adjustments based on what the customer's experience was. So it wasn't like Ben was like, well, I need to make more money on this product, or I need to do this. He's like, he had a version that was really popular. He changed it. He's changed it like 3 or 4 times, even though this is technically like version 3. He's changed it quite a bit here and there. So he's really just adjusting his product to what the customers are telling him, which is sometimes, I mean, that's all we can really do, right? You listen to what people think about your product, and if there's something you want to change in it, you make a change. So
I absolutely agree with you, because the thing is like, people say like, do you really need a version 2 or 3 or 23? Well, it depends how you look at it. Because, for example, you see cars, right? They upgrade their models every couple of years. And why? Because the technology is changing. Why? Because, the designs are changing. And we go in with, how the world is changing. And it's you can always improve on the formula. You can also try different things. So, yes, when you have a formula that works and somebody all of a sudden makes it, there's one company that... I'm not going to say who it is, but I've seen, actually, fuck it, I'll say it. ProSups. ProSups came out, and I've used this example actually before, so that's the reason why I don't mind. Before I owned Apollo Nutrition, we used to buy for the gym. Robert knows we sell pre-workouts by the scoop and stuff like that. So we used to order, I don't remember if it was a Jekyll or Hyde or both. I don't remember, one of them. People loved it. People absolutely fucking loved it. And we were selling it by the scoop. And we'll take it. It's before the craziness with the energy drinks. People would have it. They would have a great workout, and they loved it. Then a year, 2 years later, or something like that, I started getting complaints, because I would order everything from Europa like everybody else back in the day. People started complaining and saying, well, this doesn't work like it used to. And I would argue with people. I was like, what the fuck are you talking? Because I didn't know any knowledge. I didn't have any in the supplement industry. So to me, we're like, you're talking out of your ass. It's exactly the same product. It's the same container. It's the same company. It works. But then I started hearing more and more and more the fact that it doesn't work. Now, keep in mind, I was buying it for the same price. Everything was the same. And then all of a sudden, I was like, let me have a look at this. I look at it, and the formula has changed. And it didn't change for the better. It changed for the worse, And it's not, I'm not going to point finger only at ProSups. A lot of companies, they do, they practice what I call is like, we're getting a customer likes our product. Now let's see if we can cut corners a little bit and save a little bit, but yet charging the same money. So if you have a pre-workout, or you have any product, fat burner or something like that, and you decide to maybe remove 1 or 2 ingredients, obviously it's going to cost you less. If your company is doing better, then your probably buying power is a lot stronger too. Now you can get the product cheaper. And if you give that to your customer, where you're saying, look, I'm going to actually charge you less, then you're completely justifying it without a doubt. For example, yesterday I was sitting with one manufacturer. We had a meeting, and he goes to me, the price we formulated, bare knuckle version 5. We formulated bare knuckle version 5, and he goes to me, the price, because we just put a PO yesterday, he goes to me, the price is changing from what I was telling you a couple of weeks ago. I was like, really? He goes to me, yeah, it's actually cheaper, because one of the ingredients went down considerably in price. I'm able to give it to you cheaper. Now, that's very honest practice. He could have, if he didn't say nothing to me,
you would never know.
I would never know, and I would pay more, and you would make more profit. But obviously, that's how you build trust. That's how you build relationship. So there is nothing wrong with, like, to be honest with you, when Ben came out with the 10 grams of tyrosine, I mean, Robert will agree with me. I mean, we actually said it live on a podcast where we didn't quite understand why he would do it, and marketing, or maybe he wanted to try different things, but it wasn't something that we were overly impressed with. Now that I see the new formula, there is a lot less tyrosine. I believe it's 2 or 3 grams, right?
Yeah,
so
standard.
So standard. So it's obviously costing him less, and he adjusted the formula a little bit more. So he's selling it also at the cheaper price. I think the new formula is actually better than the previous one. I mean, obviously it's a matter of opinion, and maybe some people will disagree with me. But there are different approaches, and if you can make a better product, or a different product, and you're listening to consumer, obviously, somebody, I think on social media posted, "Can you do time cop every ingredient exactly the same, but completely remove the caffeine?" Clearly, I'm not going to listen to it. Why? Because now you're saying remove the caffeine completely. He didn't say reduce. He said remove. Why would I remove caffeine from a product that has area durances and alpha yohimbe and stuff like that? It makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah.
If you told me make time cop but stimulant free, I would entertain the idea, perhaps. But the whole point behind Time Cop that it's a combination of overtime and bare knuckles, so it kind of defies the purpose. So you don't listen all the time, because clearly, people are going to suggest, add this ingredient and add this flavor. You can't listen to everybody, because it's not a restaurant. It's not how you like your steak. But
no, that's a great comment. I find myself saying that a lot, where it's, especially I see that mistake happen. Well, first of all, with the formula change conversation, you're spot on with that, because like people have asked me about my form. I already have changes in mind that I could
I'm pretty sure you do
make, just depending on like what type of feedback we get, right? And I remember, I think it's Jim. Like I think Jim makes a good line of supplements. They have good stuff. Nothing against Jim, but they're I remember seeing like they've never changed their pre-workout until then. I think they realized that they released that up like crazier version of it. But I remember like one of their people there saying, "Well, it's the perfect pre-workout formula, so why would we ever change it?" And I just I couldn't roll my eyes harder at a comment probably that I've ever read in the supplements way, especially when it comes to pre-workout. I was like, you really think that you just made this one formula that is above like reproach? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I just looked at Assassin is launching in about 2-3 weeks. I looked at it. I was like, yeah, I could have done this maybe a little bit differently. There is no such thing, as perfect formula. It just doesn't exist. And when it will come out, there's people that like Assassin. I'm sure they're gonna like it. But there's always going to be critics, and you can't please everybody. You're making products for different people. The same IFBB Pro said to me, do you really need, you're going to love this. You of all people are perfect for this. When I'm going to say this, I already know how hard you're going to roll your eyes. So this is what he said to me. Do you really need anything other than isolate in your arsenal? He says, you don't need 50-50 formula eggs and egg protein. Those probably don't even sell as much. Isolate is always the most in demand. I said, perhaps. But our 50-50, I'll be honest, sells better than our isolate. It does. And personally, and I think scientifically you can make an argument too. I think it's a better formula than isolate. That's me. I like the product more. I know our consumer likes the product more. So you can't please everybody. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and what I was going to say too is one thing that, and maybe this is something that you dealt with at the beginning that you have experience with, but one thing that I see a lot of like smaller companies that are trying to build their reputation up a little bit, what they do, and I understand why they do this or they consider doing this, but if you have, say you launch a company, like fortunately for me, I have an audience sort of that I built a different way, and then now I can give them a product. But a lot of people are like, you try to launch a product and then build an audience after, which is really, really hard to do these days. So what I'll see is a company, say you get a few like early adopters that love your stuff, and you got to order a pretty good amount of units to make the price worth your while, right? So, and I have these conversations with these guys all the time. They'll come out with a product and they haven't learned how to sell that one yet. But either they just want to be the the scientist, they want to be the engineer, right? To, oh, I got all this cool stuff I want to make and I want to release it. Or you have like, a handful of people that say, man, I love your pre-workout. Can you make a protein? And they're like, yeah, so I'm going to release a protein. I was like, don't release it. If you don't have, like 1,000 people asking you for a new product, because probably, I don't know, man, like what 1% of people that ask you for things are actually going to buy them. They just want to ask you for shit. Like that's the way people on social media are. Like I'll take people's feedback into consideration, of course, but you don't take everyone's feedback into consideration, because the consumer, just in general, and I'll do this in like other areas besides the supplement space. So it's not like I'm not on a soapbox about this, but you want everything. You want the option to buy absolutely everything, but doesn't mean you're going to buy it. You know what I mean? So here you are going, well, I got like these 10 rabid fans of mine, and those are my only fans at this point. They want a protein, so I'm going to order, 500 units of protein or whatever, and you just sold 4 of them, and now you got 496 of them sitting there that you just paid a premium for, and you're going, hey guys, aren't you going to buy my protein that you were asking for? But people only really want the option. So they're always going to have critics. Like you were saying, you're always going to have suggestions from people, especially from people that don't understand the process at all, like how difficult it actually is. Because I'll tell people, like, if you don't, they're like, well, when are you going to release another product? People are already asking me that. And I'm like, when my accounting tells me it's time to release another product. Like once, because you start getting into that cash flow nightmare of cash coming in, cash going out faster than you can bring it in. If you do that from the beginning, then you never really know if you're a good, profitable company or not, because you're just constantly chasing your tail. So I was like, when the spreadsheet tells me it's safe to do it, I have lots of ideas.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I think that, every company has to be, you have to know your consumer without a doubt. We had, we had, I think when we just started the company, maybe within a year or so, we had pina colada protein, 50/50, tasted very good. It was
Pina
good
colada protein.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
had
know about this.
Yeah, we had this. It was probably one of our first ones, probably the first year. But I'll be honest with you, maybe if we launched it today, it would be a different story, because obviously Apollon is a stronger name, more popular, more known. So I'm pretty sure we would be doing okay. But back then it was chocolate, vanilla, and that's pretty much it. Cookies and peanut butter cookie came a little bit later. But pina colada was, I think we had strawberry, pina colada, chocolate, and vanilla. Chocolate and vanilla sold right away pretty good. I mean, we only used to order like 100 units. And yeah, well, our first order was 30 units.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, so before you go on, like, not to interrupt you, but like, how did the pina colada flavor come about? Was that something you wanted to do, and like you went to the manufacturer and said this, or was it something that they said, hey, we've been working on this kind of thing?
So, okay, good question, actually. So the whole concept of Apollo Nutrition, obviously, I came up with it just for, to sell the products at the gym. But Mark Glazier, he was the one who helped me out to start the whole, because he's like 10, 15 minutes from here. So he said, yeah, you know what, I'll help you out. I'll manufacture for you a little bit. So that's when I said, I can probably, I mean, for me, we used to buy at the time 2, 3, 4 containers of protein. It would last us 2-3 weeks to make shakes. So I said to him, you know what would you be comfortable with? I don't know the minimums. I don't know the industry. I don't know anything. All I know is I know that isolate and casein is something that I wanted. That's what I wanted to do, And believe it or not, I actually based that on a steroid. I based that on sustanon, which is a mix of few different testosterones. So, faster acting and slower acting. So I said, I'm going to do the same with protein. So it's a funny story. I based protein actually on testosterone. So, and he said, okay, no problem. So we agreed on 30 units per flavor. And chocolate and vanilla was no brainer. We kind of came up with it right away. Strawberry too. And we said, you know what, let's do something fun, because at the time we were selling Isolized by Species Nutrition. We were selling muscle milk. Don't laugh at me. And that's where, so Muscle Milk at the time was very, very popular, and they had probably like 100 flavors. They had all kind of flavors, mint and whatnot. I mean, they had a lot. And I think that Labrada, we had Lean Body. We were selling Lean Body by Labrada. He had some kind of an exotic protein. I forgot what it was, but something was exotic, and it was selling pretty good at the gym, like in terms of shakes. So Michael, who would do the flavoring for NutriBio, he's from Peru, and
he's awesome.
He's a great guy. Great guy. So we were talking, and he goes to me, I came up with a pina colada. He says, you want to try it? I tried it, and I was like, yeah, fuck, let's do it.
That's awesome.
And there was a fifth one, banana. Banana was a fifth one. So banana and pina colada were the slowest selling for us. Like really, when we started to actually manufacture a little bit more and selling outside the gym, those two were kind of struggling. So we said, with the cash flow, just like you said, and everything else, we said, you know what, we're going to remove those. And we removed them. And that was pretty much it. But as it usually is the case, people that like the pina colada, for example, they would like, oh, why would you stop producing it? Why did you remove it from the list? You have to bring it back. Oh, I'm not going to fucking bring it back just for you, because it makes no sense. At the end of the day, it's still a business. So we never brought it back.
That is that's the most anti-2023 thing I've ever heard in my life. You mean you're not going to just make it just for that one person?
Yeah, man? I mean, it's, that's the reason why sometimes I look at these comments where, and I'm pretty sure, once you release your formula, you're going to have those experts, so to speak, those critics who are going to say, Justin, you should have done this. Justin, you underdosed this. Justin, you overdosed this. This is unnecessary. This is not going to work. Everybody's an expert. And to me, this is something that I absolutely hate about the way society is. I'm getting maybe a little bit now political and off the topic, but I hate it because why don't you fucking mind your own business? If you don't like something or you don't want something, simple solution, don't buy. You have so many options these days. Why are you telling me how to run my business? Why are you telling me what to do? Why are you telling me what kind of equipment I should bring to my gym? I own the gym for the past 15 or 16 years. Don't you think if I'm still not out of business that I'm doing a fairly decent job at maintaining a gym, considering the pandemic, considering the fact that since I, started a Pollen gym or bought a Pollen gym, there is at least 25 fitness centers that open around me, bigger, shinier, with fucking AC blowing 24/7, and we still here. We still doing good. We still, standing our own ground. And you coming with zero knowledge, zero experience, you telling me what to do, what to add. You don't know that a certain machine, a brand new machine today, is an average of $3,000 to $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Your membership of $25, $50 is not going to cover that machine. Do I go to your office and I tell you how to do your business? I don't do that. So why are you coming here? And if you don't like Assassin, because Assassin has area durances and it has 600 milligram of caffeine or whatever, it's a simple solution. You have so many choices on the market. Go buy that one. You have a choice. That's the reason, I wanted to touch upon this epic block party by Natural Body just happened 2 weeks ago, and I was there, and we were welcomed with open arms, considering how many brands were there, and there was a lot of brands. And to be honest with you, I didn't look at one brand as my competitor. Whoever I'm friendly with, whoever is nice and stuff like that, we talked, we shared some ideas, some feedback and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we complimented each other. Maybe in a way we are competitors, maybe. But at the same time, I have my audience, they have their audience, I'm happy for them. Hopefully they're happy for me. But the thing is if you don't like my product, you always have a choice. Kind of like, with what happened, it just happens to be that 2 or 3 companies released pistachio protein on the same week, or, or in the span of 2 weeks or something like that. I didn't steal nothing from nobody. They didn't steal nothing from me. We didn't talk. We didn't plan this. I didn't find out, oh, you know what, Muscle Sport and NutraBio is releasing pistachio, let me release one too. There was it's just a fucking flavor. And I'm pretty sure that Apollon people will buy pistachio and Muscle Sport will buy pistachio from them. And whoever is not, you know, our customer yet or their customer, maybe we'll try both and we'll make a decision which one is better for him personally. Like you and I talked about this through text messages, they kind of different. I haven't even tried these. Does that mean that ours better or theirs better? Not necessarily. What it means is that they slightly different or they very much different. I don't know. Again, I haven't tried there, but you have a choice. Exercise that right that you have a choice and buy whatever's best for you. You don't have to buy if you don't like something.
Well, and the funny thing, there's a lot to unpack about what you said. I want to go back first because one thing you said I think was really important when it comes to that was the position I started to find myself in. And Robert, I don't know if you like started to feel this way, where you start like reviewing products, and I think reviewers and things like that are important for the space. But the way I started to feel after a little while was, you know, I don't want to be a person that just sits there and comments about other people's projects, like other, you know, every company's contribution. Like they're the ones actually out there like doing stuff. I don't want to be the guy that's just sitting here going, well, that's shit, that's good. This it started to just make me feel kind of uncomfortable because I was like, well, I'm just kind of riding on these people's coattails. Like I want to go out there and create something, you know, for myself. Now, granted, I'll still like if I see things that are bad, you know, I'm going to talk about it. Or like if people ask me directly, like I'll give my opinion. But I started to just be a little uncomfortable because what I realized was there are the outliers that do deserve people going, okay, you guys are literally trying to fuck people over. You're scamming people. It does happen, and that should be talked about. But what I started to notice, especially just talking to people, is, you know, people's formulas might not be what I like and not be the best, and not they might be a little misguided and they might be, you know, kind of terrible. But it's not. It's usually, at least in my experience, it's usually not because they're trying to be an asshole about it. They're just their manufacturer told them to make this. They didn't know enough about it. They just followed the advice, because that's what I started to notice too. Was these people weren't necessarily making their own formulas. They didn't really know what to do. So a manufacturer will give them some stock formula and say, because it's easier for them to run. And they'll just say, yeah, this is what you guys should do. And they would push formulas on people. So then they would just run them. I didn't really realize that until I would start asking people like, well, what was your thought process, you know, behind this formula or this ingredient? And they're like, well, it wasn't, you know, we didn't really know. It was kind of like a suggestion. So I start to try to put myself in their shoes. Like, how would they feel if they were really excited about this business? They probably sacrificed a whole lot to get there. And then, you know, some asshole like me is on there just shitting all over their, you know, thing. Like, I usually don't do it publicly unless I really feel like someone, you know, deserves it. But like, I'll talk to someone offline and be like, hey, you know, if they want feedback, I'll be like, here, I'll tell you. But I usually won't publicly do it because it just started to make me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, why am I just sitting here being the guy? And nothing against reviewers and things, like I said, but I didn't want to be that guy that was just talking about all this stuff and critiquing, you know, sitting there going, well, I think Pollen fucked this up because they used, you know, this and they replaced this ingredient, and that's my opinion, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I would rather be a person that's out there creating, you know, at the same time. So that was one
with you.
Yeah.
And I think that the whole, you know, I've been in this industry for 8 years, and I consider myself still a newbie because I think that, you know, there are people with 20, 25. I mean, especially next to somebody like Mark Glazer, I'm a baby. But the thing is that I noticed even in the last 8 years, there are significant changes within the industry. And I noticed something at the block party. It was very, very interesting to me, and I wanted your opinion on that. So there were a couple of celebrities, so to speak. Not going to name any names; it's unnecessary. Celebrities, I mean, in terms of fitness industry, like bodybuilding and stuff like that, and they were there. And I remember back, I don't want to say back in the day, but before, let's say before. whenever you had somebody like that, there would be a line of people, and they all want to take pictures and selfies and autographs and stuff like that. I didn't see it this time around. They were there. They were present. And some of them, again, I'm not going to name any names. I mean, you can look up who was there. I'll just say this. Seth Ferozzi had people lining up to meet him.
Yeah. People love Seth.
Yeah, but I don't think it's because he's a bodybuilder. I mean, he does look a certain way. I think his personality. I think he's just a class act. You know, I don't know him very well. We met a few times. But as soon as he made eye contact with me, this is the type of person that he is. He basically ran to me and was like, "Hey, Rob, how you doing?" He shook my hand, and he was genuine about it. You know, he wasn't fake. There were a couple of people who approached me, and they were clearly fake. You know, it's just, I mean, it goes probably in any industry. But what I did observe was like that the famous or the bodybuilders, say, with insane following or something like that on social media, they didn't have the same lines, or hardly any lines, to be honest. You know, people wanted to talk to brand owners and people behind, you know, the products and companies and stuff like that. I noticed more than those athletes. And, well, again, before, you used to have expos with people walking around, you know, the expos, and everybody would have like 24 fucking inch arms, and you know, the bodies would scream steroids and stuff like that. That wasn't the case either. You had average Joe, you know, people, you know, regular soccer moms and stuff like that, who were there to try the products and buy the products and stuff like that. So to me, that was fascinating to see average people that clearly were not enhanced, you know, that probably just had 9 to 5 jobs and went to the gym to work out, and they were buying supplements, listening maybe to you and Robert and maybe even me, you know, to people that don't exactly look like they fucking Mr. Olympias and stuff like that. And to me, that was absolutely fascinating how much the market has changed. And again, I mean, I'm probably the one who should shut up because we have Branch Warren, who is a legend in bodybuilding. But, you know, you have, again, Glaxon, and you have Ghost, and you have like certain companies that have absolutely none of the bodybuilders, you know, with 24-inch arms. They have maybe, you know, ambassadors and stuff like that. But Morphogen is doing good, and as far as I know, Ben is probably number one when it comes to being the face of the company. You have like a pro. I understand Jeff Long is, you know, a retired bodybuilder, but and this is not a knock on Jeff. Jeff was never a top level bodybuilder. You know, so you can look at him perhaps more as a brand owner more than an athlete. Yes, he works out. He's in phenomenal shape. But again, you know, he didn't become a famous world-class bodybuilder. He had a great physique, and that's about it. Seth Ferozzi competed, I don't know, like a few times as a pro, and that's it. And also, I don't know if he ever made it to the Olympia or not, but I think he's more famous as Seth Ferozzi than as a bodybuilder, you know, like personality-wise. And then you have Glaxon. I mean, they had fucking Joey at the booth, you know.
Right.
And people would talk to him. I saw it, you know, people would talk to him. And Brian from Jersey Shore Supplements, Astroflev, you know, people would talk to him, and he didn't have any athletes around him or stuff like that. And, you know, we are at our booth, we had our sales rep, we had Carolina, we had me, and we had Maria. You know, none of us are world-class bodybuilders. So have you noticed that? Have you noticed those changes, and what do you attribute them to?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I noticed that, you know, well, there's a couple things with that, because you have, like, I think bodybuilders, because like back in the day, right, a bodybuilder would be a paid athlete for Muscle Tech or BSN or whatever it is, and they would pay them a big salary to get out there and be in magazines, because we didn't have the social media interaction. Where the thing about expos that I've noticed these days, expos have changed, because you would go to an expo back in the day because that was like your chance. You know, you could see some videos on YouTube of, you know, Rich Piana or whatever it is, and you would watch that, but you never got to interact with them the way we do now. Like, that's one reason, like if we use Jeff, for example, the reason why Jeff one of the main reasons why he's become so popular, that dude is on social media answering questions and talking to people all day long, every single day, whether he's on vacation, whether he's at home. He talks to more customers. He probably talks to as many people a day as I do. And Morphogen's the same kind of way. That he's been on there for like 7 years, literally interacting with every single person that asks him a question. And that's one thing I've noticed. A lot of brands that have fallen off is like sometimes you'll look like Apollon. When Apollon makes a post, there's tons of comments, and there's people interacting with those people that make the comments. There's a lot of brands, they just put their stuff up there and they don't interact with their fans at all, right? And they're the ones that are falling behind. Brands like Rise that have blown up through TikTok and stuff like that. It's the interaction. Like people don't necessarily, because everyone's making good products these days for the most part. There's lots of good products out there. So what is it that draws you? And it's not, people don't look at the bodybuilders the way they used to. If the bodybuilder, if they happen to be in great shape like Seth or Jeff, and then also a person listens to Seth's podcast and follows him on social media and really likes the things he has to say, because he's one of those dudes that their entire brand embodies him. Like it's not a fake thing. Like when you meet them, like Axe and Sledge is perfect for their whole entire team, right? And then bodybuilders realize, why would we need to be an athlete sponsor or be out there talking about someone? I could just make my own brand. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So the personal interaction with everyone has kind of changed the game when it comes to that. And people aren't as impressed, like especially younger people. Younger people aren't impressed with bodybuilders the way things sort of used to be. People are impressed by influencers. If you look at the biggest influencers, you have the Alani nutrition energy drink that was selling 30 million cans or whatever, like in a week, because of Kim Kardashian, right? Or you have the Prime. That dude's not a bodybuilder, he's not a fitness person, but he comes into our space and just absolutely dominates it, because young kids are they're following along with a different type of influencer. I don't think that there are people that hardcore follow people, say like Chris Bumstead. Like he's the exception to this probably thing, where he's so good, but also I think anytime I hear people talk about Chris Bumstead, they talk about like what a nice guy he is, like what a good guy he is, like interacting with people. And a lot of people in the bodybuilding space are not personable people. A lot of bodybuilders are not, they're just, they're kind of dicks, and people don't like that stuff. They're not going to just buy a product from someone that they don't feel some kind of like personal connection with. And I think like that's the main thing you're talking about, is influence. Who you're influenced by has totally changed. Where it used to be, if I remember buying Muscle Tech, my first supplements I ever bought were Muscle Tech, because you would open up the magazine, right, and you would see these people next to a tub and go, oh, but now with the way social media is, you're seeing such transparency from these companies. I mean, you got companies, like I said, Rise is a good example, right? They blew up. They're showing people on TikTok and stuff like that, literally like 24 hours a day about their operation. And people love that stuff, man. So they'll just go and buy their products because they feel just a more personal connection to them than ever before, which is really cool. You're 100% right. The bodybuilders have no pull these days over who buys their products, outside of maybe a handful of them.
And then you have, like I said, you have companies like Glaxon who
they don't have anybody.
I don't think they have anybody, and doing just fine. So I think that's very cool.
Bucked Up, I think, was one. Bucked Up was there's been a couple brands. I don't use Bucked Up products. Alani Nu was one. Bucked Up, a Ghost, obviously. I think Ghost was probably one of the first that really started to change things. I know everyone gives a ton of credit to Ghost all the time, and we don't need to keep doing that, but they really kind of changed the paradigm a little bit over what it means to sell supplements and buy from a brand, because they showed you don't need bodybuilders to do it. They turned it the lifestyle brand, right? Then everyone tried to follow Ghost's blueprint, and it doesn't work, because Ghost was one of the first, the first ones to sort of put it out there. It's like we're not making this stuff for bodybuilders. Once they introduced it to, you know, the lifestyle, people started it. And there's just so much more. There's so many more customers in that demographic than the hardcore bodybuilding crowd. Because, you know, a lot of bodybuilders in the bodybuilding crowd and stuff, they know supplements are only taking them so far anyway, because they're using other things. So people are like, okay, we're going to find, it's kind of like what I was thinking about with this brain health supplement. There's so many people that we could bring into this space. You know, my mom, for example, people's parents, you know, when I started talking about this supplement, everyone had a person in their life that they thought of when I started talking about this. Whether it's you know, your grandmother, people seeing people go through dementia issues, or they're trying to protect against not being their grandmother, grandfather, whatever. So everyone thought of someone immediately, because that's how I started the whole idea in the first place. Is I thought about someone close to me and what could I do for them. There's so many more people that are out there that we can bring into this space that still aren't here yet, and that's good for everyone. Like, I started buying my mom Neutrogen from Morphogen, right? Because she doesn't eat that much. And I was like, Mom, you need to get something, right? So she started buying Neutrogen. I got my dad to take Morphogen's testosterone product, right? So now all of a sudden these people that have never thought supplements, they probably thought of them as, you know, kind of fake and, you know, kind of dangerous. Now all of a sudden they're realizing, wow, this stuff really does help. And, you know, they're not bodybuilders. So now all of a sudden we have new customers in this space, and that's good for everyone, because then, you know, they might discover a pollen product. So they might discover, you know, whoever it is.
No, I agree with you, because and this first came to me going back maybe 25 years ago or something like that. My relative was my mom's cousin was he passed away. He was dying from cancer, and I remember that you know, he would actually drink protein shakes. His doctor told him to drink protein shakes, and I'm like, whoa, this is. I thought, you know, I was in my early 20s. I was like, I thought protein was just for bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the customer base is definitely, if you think that there is only these are bodybuilding products, then you're greatly mistaken. And I'm glad to see how much it shifted. I'm glad to see average Joe being a consumer these days. I'm glad to see how much the market has expanded. With so many companies that we have right now, so many brands, you won't be able to survive 10 years ago. Today, there is enough actually of the pie for everybody. If you have a product that can identify with certain customers, then yeah, absolutely. Robert, you popped up, and actually, I had a question for you. Somebody asked me on social media, but I think this is a question for you, not for me. And I think that the fact that Justin doesn't count anymore because he's a brand owner, so he would be biased too. So let's have you as an independent, the brain. Somebody asked me this question 2 days ago when we announced that we're going to have a podcast. Pump ingredients, 4 primarily: Cell 6, Vasodrive, nitrosigine, and nitrates. Citrulline was left out of this group for some reason. I don't know why. Which ones do you like, and why? What would you prefer? I guess maybe even let's adjust it a little bit. Say if you have a label with citrulline in it, because everybody puts citrulline in their pre-workouts. What would be the second ingredient, or third, or another 2 that you actually, basically, which pump ingredients do you like?
Yeah, are we, when we're formulating this product, are we assuming citrulline is a must-have and it's already in there?
You know what? It's up to you. Whatever. I mean, the question was particularly about these 4 ingredients. So if you want to put citrulline, do it. If not, then don't.
No, my question would be, if we're definitely going to have citrulline in there, then we don't need nitrosigine, because they basically do the exact same thing at the exact same point in the pathway.
Which, by the way, I see a lot: nitrosigine and citrulline together.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to do there could be an additive effect between the two, because citrulline gets converted into arginine, and that goes into nitric oxide. So if you only have, 2 to 4 grams of citrulline, even though that's within the clinically studied range, I'd still like to see 1,500 milligrams of nitrosigine or 1,600 of new level in there. if we are, so I would go with that. Or if we're going purely on pumps, I would do nitrosamine or nitrates at the very top. Those are the two. Like nitrates are one of the most powerful things we have for boosting nitric oxide in the dietary supplement realm. They're expensive, so is nitrosamine, and the acquisition of them can be tenuous at best for some brand owners, depending on what products they have and the ingredients in those particular products. I'll just leave it at that, based on anecdotal reports I've heard from other brand owners. I have no personal experience dealing with Thermolife. So those would be my top two. Sulflo 6, it is a variant of a green tea extract. It's a source of polyphenols. I would like to see a lot more human data on Sulflo 6 before I give it a ringing endorsement. But you can get grapeseed extract, pomegranate powder, any source of those really powerful, potent polyphenols for boosting nitric oxide are good. But that's got more of like a secondary kind of effect. So they're nuking free radicals, and excessive free radicals oxidative stress can reduce nitric oxide production in the body. Plus, they also catalyze that enzyme eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, which is what the body uses to convert citrulline and arginine into nitric oxide. I like Vasodrive AP. So this is a shameless plug, but I did an ebook. I haven't officially hit the publish button yet because I'm too chicken shit to actually do that. I like to go back and keep tweaking everything, but I did a top 10 best supplements for blood pressure. Citrulline/nitrosamine are on there. Nitrates are on there. Vasodrive or amyl peptide is on there. The thing is, you need a shit ton of Vasodrive. Like the little 254 to 508 by itself doesn't give you an actual significant amount enough of those lactotripeptides, those three little bonds of amino acids that are actually in there. You're getting like 1.8 milligrams to 3.6 of them. So to even start to get like a modest amount of that, you need 1,000 milligrams of Vasodrive AP, which is going to price most people out of it. Now, if you're using it in conjunction with,
there is one. I'm so glad.
Not gonna let this go.
I'm so glad that Robert said that, because it's perfect. Because one of the things I was going to talk to you about on here too was that was the immediate question. Robert's such a smart guy. I love Robert. Everything he just said is super spot on.
And I'm sorry,
and I'm going to let him keep going.
I know where you're going with this.
I don't mean
but the one responsible for 1,000 milligram of Vasodrive in Bloodsport is actually Robert. That was his idea.
That. Well, and no one. It's so expensive.
It is.
It's so
fuck
expensive.
You, Robert.
People would their blood pressure. So that's why you have to do this. It's right because. So Robert's not a brand owner, right? So he's like, well, I'll throw in, 10 grams of it, because who cares, right? Who cares if you
why not?
Money on it? But that's good to use for your blood pressure, because when you see how much it costs, your blood pressure definitely goes up. But like what Robert said, all four of those ingredients you could put into a great pump product together, because they all kind of do different things. But one of the things I was going to talk to you about was Bloodsport. That was the first question, and even a question that I wanted to know myself, because I haven't used huge amounts of Vasodrive yet. People are like, well, is there a difference between 508 and 1016? And the answer, because of what Robert said, is emphatic yes. Bloodsport is one of the craziest pump products I've ever used. And I know it's the Vasodrive in there, the addition, like adding more. I've even taken the Bloodsport and mixed it with Jeff's Pump and Focus. And that gives you like another 254, or I think he uses 254 Vasodrive. Because what Robert said is key is in that 508 of the Vasodrive. I think is it 3.6 or 3.8? It's one of the two.
3.4 is what it yields of the
right there in front of me. Right. That's you're actually, and we talk about this all the time, we're going into these big amounts of ingredients to pull something really tiny from it sometimes. So yeah, you're getting the 3.4 milligrams out of 508. So now when you jump up and you get say 6.8 milligrams in yours, there is a noticeable difference. So anyway, sorry, Robert, I just had to kind of give you some extra credit there.
No, but it's true.
Appreciate it, man.
I'm going to add to that. I mean, typically, sometimes, like for example, Robert and I had discussion. It's not that Robert is pushing high dosages or anything like that, I mean, I'm probably more guilty of that than Robert, but Robert is very, very scientific, and I do give him tremendous credit for it because, he bases it on facts, and I'm a huge facts guy. I love facts. I don't like, theories. I don't like synergies. I don't like potential. I don't like anecdotal. I like facts. So when we talked recently about, for example, I think, Robert, we talked about CDP choline, right? CDP choline. And Robert was to me, goes, yeah, well, 250 milligram to 500 milligram. And I was on his case. I was like, so is it 250 or 500? He goes to me, you can't go wrong with either one of them. 250 will be sufficient enough to get the results, right? That's what you said. And he said 250 is enough. So he didn't push like on me, no, you got to do 500 because 500 is much, much better than 250. He didn't say that. He was basically 250 to 500. You're within the range. You're good. And then we had a conversation about Bloodsport, and I was telling him, I was like, you know what, Bloodsport, let's do something. It's already arguably the best pure pump product on the market. I said, let's change it up a little bit, maybe add an ingredient, or maybe let's do something. Obviously, since we released the first Bloodsport, our buying power, the popularity of Apollon helped us, kind of get a better pricing and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still fucking expensive because Vasodrive, and you can call Maypro, no matter what you're going to negotiate with them. I tried that with my manufacturer. They're not going to budge on the price. The price of Vasodrive doesn't matter how much you buy, it's going to be fucking expensive. So I was talking to Robert about it. I was like, well, let's go with citrulline to 10 grams. I mean, from 8 to 10, and, I'm kind of like shooting myself in the foot right now, but Robert said to me, yeah, you're probably going to see a little bit more, but it's not going to be significant. It's not going to be something crazy where it's going to be like, oh my God, 10, going from 8 to 10, I see these amazing pumps, and I'm like, just, huge difference. I was like, okay, so going from 8 to 10, we can, and citrulline pricing has gone down since, the craziness that it was about 2 years ago. I was like, okay, so from 8 to 10, I can go. The price is not going to be significantly different. In fact, considering we ordered Bloodsport when the price was a lot higher, that's okay. It kind of balances it out. What can we do? And then Robert goes, well, let's double Vasodrive. I'm like, the fuck? I'm like, are you fucking nuts? I mean, I knew the price is going to be a factor, but I was like, is it going to be better? And that's when he presented me with this, and he said to me, well, look, the facts are 1,000 is going to be significantly better than 508. 1,016 is going to be significant. There will be change. People will feel it. And ever since we launched it, the truth is, in fact, people are saying that the new Bloodsport is significantly better than the previous version. There is a remarkable difference. So, again, kudos to you, Robert. I mean, you were right. And like I said, it wasn't my idea. I just give credit where credit due.
Well, yeah.
And I knew that he's a big fan of the ingredient as well. He likes it. But Robert, let me ask you a crazier question. Do you think that, because I know there's always a limit, do you think going above 1,000 would yield significant difference as well? Would it be more beneficial significantly? Would it justify the price, or do you think 1,000 enough?
I mean, the 1016 is within that range. So 508 technically gets you right at that threshold. So the clinically studied dosages are between 3.07 milligrams of the active lactotripeptides that are in Vasodrive up to 52.5. So, I mean, with 508, you're getting 3.4. So 1,000 would be 6.8. So that's got you right in there. You could do 7 times that. So you could go up to 7,000 milligrams of Vasodrive. Like the product's going to cost you $200.
Yeah, no, obviously,
I wouldn't recommend doing that. No, I would say just keep it at 1,000 because you run the risk. Some people could end up going hypotensive, especially if you have it stacked with nitrates, nitrosogene, all this other stuff. Then that you send people into that feeling lightheaded and dizzy, and some maybe nauseous. You don't want to do that either. So that's where. With Vasodrive, you could slant it down 254. So like somebody already has low blood pressure. I wouldn't recommend them taking, 10 grams of citrulline plus 1,500 nitrostigine plus 3,000 milligrams of arginine nitrate plus vasodrive. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah, I can confidently say, like, if you were, I've done this myself. Like, I've tested thresholds many times in my life, and there's been times where you can give yourself, like, people think heart palpitations only come from stress and too high stims. That's not true. I can attest to this. It can happen from your blood pressure dropping too much. And that's the thing when we talk about studies that we mention a lot on here. And I find myself saying, like, every single day, sometimes this clinical dosage marketing gets a little cringe because, yes, you can say this is the clinical dose of vasodrive, but we don't have a clinical study that combines, citrulline nitrates, vasodrive, cell flow and all this other stuff. So when people say clinical dosage, not that it's a bad thing, but it's kind of another one of those things you take that with a little grain of salt.
Sometimes it's taking a little bit too far.
Yeah, where people realize, like, oh, now everyone thinks that clinical dose of beta alanine is 3.2 grams.
And everyone, what the funny thing is that I had this conversation with Ron Kramer. And the nitrates typically are ranging from 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000, something like that. That's basically where he's comfortable. I had this conversation with him where I'm kind of giving away a little bit here, but I was working on a product. Robert knows the product, and product's going to see the light. I was like, you know what if we go a little bit higher on certain pump ingredients? I was talking to Ron Kramer, what you said about lowering the blood pressure and stuff like that, and especially with nitrates. And Ron Kramer, he's very knowledgeable, actually. And
very, yes.
Yeah, and he was like, you know what, considering that you're going a little bit higher on stims than normal on this particular product, he says, I think it's going to balance us out very, very well. So that made a very, very good point. Obviously, if you go crazy on nitrates or you go crazy on certain products, there are risks. People are constantly talking about caffeine and stimulants. There are other dangers with other ingredients that are just probably as bad if you're not doing them properly. So another product that we talked about dosages, right? So with we always thought that vasodrive is 256 to 508. Clearly we can go higher. With nitrates, we know 2,000-3,000 or whatnot. With citrulline, we know, say, 10 grams or something. Cell flow 6, I think you can. There are products that have 900 and 1,000. But there is one ingredient, nitrostigine, that I know for a fact, Nutrition 21, that owns nitrostigine, they don't allow to use 1,500 more than 1,500 milligrams. That's pretty much the limit. I always was curious, like, why?
Well, and that's it. It actually ties into something because I have this conversation with people quite a bit. I don't know all the ins. I do know some things about nitrostigine, but customers want more dosages and things like that, which is, I get it. But
I'm sorry to interrupt. What if we say, for example, didn't have, like Robert said, it's a great pairing with citrulline and nitrostigine. So say 3, 4, 5 grams of citrulline and 1,500 milligram of nitrostigine is great. But what if we didn't have citrulline? Why can't we have more nitrostigine?
Well, so it has to do with. Sorry, Justin. I talked to Todd about this a couple of weeks ago because there was a very well-selling brand that had over that amount, that it's driven by a YouTuber. Most people can probably figure out who it is. I called up Todd. I said, hey, thought you were pretty strict on this. He said, we've been in contact with them. We've got the situation remedied. But it goes back to the testing that they've only tested it to a certain threshold. Now, I'm not going to say this for him. I've personally used nitrostigine at double the dose, or nitrostigine in the morning and new level in the afternoon as part of a nootropic stack, and there's no adverse effects. So it's just what in-house safety data they have to secure their GRAS status there. No adverse effect limit, and no AEL, whatever that acronym stands for. No obvious adverse effect limit, something like that. So it has to do with what they've got their patents for and what their research studies. But I think they might have some other higher dosage studies in the works or planned.
Yeah, and Mito burns the same way, because this conversation came up, and because Jeff, right? So Mito burn, everyone was releasing 500 milligrams max Mito burn, and then Jeff Long came out with like a gram, and then he put like 1.5 grams in the product. So then people are going, well, why does? And this is one thing that it always helps, knowing someone like Joey or something that has their finger on the pulse of all this stuff. They were like, well, why does Glaxon only have 500, say, in their thermal product? And one of the things, like, they're not allowed, if they're like in GNC, for example, GNC won't let a product with more. This is, at least this was the case a little while back when this kind of all came about. Like, if there's no safety data that you can show that this is safe for someone to take at 1 gram or 1.5 grams. Now, it probably is plenty safe, but they just don't know it yet. Certain places won't accept a product that has that type. It's like, GNC has caffeine limits on their products. They have limited, because they have to see some kind of safety data. And that's the thing, like you're saying with nitrogen, is not that it's not safe, they just haven't proven it yet. So they don't want people using more than what they're recommending. It's the same thing like what you're saying, Robbie, with Ron. That is one great thing. I've never worked with him directly, but that's one great thing that I think is he probably doesn't get enough credit for in this space. Is in this space, people get fucking crazy, and they're like, well, why don't we just throw 87 grams of nitrates, since Robbie's using 3. And now the different nitrate forms have different nitrate. Like if you use sodium nitrate, it's totally different than arginine nitrate, and we can get all that. But like, people are always trying to one up each other. There's certain ingredients you don't want to one up each other, at least not yet. So it's good to have someone like Ron that is so hands-on when his ingredient gets used. That's how we always can spot a fake product right away, is if I see, nitrates, NO3T nitrates in a product that has Nupept or DMAA or whatever, that product is total bullshit, because Ron would never agree to that. And one of the good things about it is, and I feel like that's how I would want to be too, is if you had an ingredient, you would want to have some say in where it kind of goes, because there's so much liability. There's so much things that can go wrong. Like, people don't appreciate how much like legal ramifications there could be if someone gets sick or someone actually gets hurt. That is actually horrible for our entire industry. You have people that are out there like freelancing and just throwing shit against the wall. It's not just that those products could or probably are fake, or that's not even my biggest issue with products like that. Sometimes it's, if you have people out there doing stuff like that, it actually could hurt the access we have to products down the road. Because if there's adverse effects, the FDA does step in, right? Like a ephedrine or a DMAA or whatever it is. And we don't want them to step in. We don't want, because they'll just come in and just say, okay, you guys this is all done. They don't have they're not going to go in there and like find, well, this person went out there and did something they weren't supposed to do. They don't care. They'll just kind of come in. So not only are those products, kind of, I don't want to see them anyway, because people aren't following the proper procedures, but it also hurts companies that are, and it hurts us as customers that want to use stuff, because you just have this little tiny group of whack jobs that are breaking the rules. And it's not necessarily, like I said, about I don't like regulation. I don't, whatever, but it hurts everyone. So that's my end of my rant. It hurts us all when products like that find their way to market.
That's actually a great way of putting it. Yeah, because it's absolutely true. Like I said, people like every time you hear about something dangerous like caffeine, okay, you have guys drinking today 5-6 energy drinks a day with 200 or whatever, 300 milligram of caffeine, and they fine. But there are other ingredients, there are aspects that people are not looking into it. So that was a great point. I know that we all have busy afternoons, so before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you again, Justin, just give us a little update. Well, number one, guys, we'll try to do this more often than once every 3-4 weeks. But Justin, just before we wrap it up, when can we expect your products? Where is going to be available? Can you share any information?
Yeah, no, and I have one question for you too, like a quick one after I answer this. So we, like I was saying earlier, we went through some back and forth with label compliance and things like that. I want to make sure I got that right, right from the beginning. We don't want to go back and change things. So the labels, as you know, a lot of people that follow along probably don't know. In order to run a product, they have to have your labels first. So labels is one of the first things that people should probably start getting to work on, because that process can get a little rough. We're using Nutrimedia.
I hate that process.
Yeah, and labels, especially when you follow really strict compliance, it's so much stupid shit. Not stupid shit, but just little things that you just don't know. But anyway, we're also using TK and them over at Nutrimedia. They do a lot of brands. Their printer does a lot of brands. So we were waiting in line, and then we had to pull it out of line at the last second and then put it back in. So I think the labels were printed yesterday, or they're being printed today, which I'm really excited about. So then, now that we have that, labels are going to 0 Day, which is where manufacturing, the guys over at Klaxon are doing it. We're waiting for the one ingredient, the one that, like I said, I haven't seen in this space yet. That's really cool. I'm really excited about. And then once that gets there, they're usually pretty quick at turning things around. So I was aiming for a little while ago, I was aiming for around an early October kind of release. That was just kind of in my head. But also at the same time,
I heard there is a seminar you're going to attend.
If we're going to the Apollon event, and then we also actually have a family vacation the week after, if I get it early enough, I'll release it before that event. But if we get it, I might actually bring it with me and then just not really launch it yet, because that's the thing is I'm being really hands-on with this launch. I'm going to do all the fulfillments, and I really want to get firsthand feedback from customers. It's a really important part of the process for me. So I need to be there. So I can't really be, hanging out, in Jersey, and then the following week we have a little vacation. So I might push the official launch back till after that, just so I can be there in front of the computer fulfilling orders all day long. So we'll see, but I'm aiming for somewhere in that area. Fingers crossed everything goes right. We're thinking maybe end of September, but probably more like mid-October kind of thing, just so things are, things are handled up front, because I probably won't launch it as soon as I get it either. There's a lot of little things we need to do. And then, so one of the questions that I had several questions, and they were all about the same thing.
Go ahead.
Anarchy Labs, the teasers that you did a little while back, is there any updates on what's going on with Anarchy Labs? I know that you already have some products and things like that, but people have been asking what's going on with that.
So here's the thing. I mean, Anarchy Labs was supposed to be, well, we were planning to release it. That's the reason why I didn't give like an exact date. We were planning to release it end of the year, sometimes around November, December. But we have massive amount of products that we wanted to release before the end of the year. And this is a business process, but I'm very transparent, so I don't mind sharing. The whole point was about to release as many products as we can, good products, not just products, left and right. I think every release has a purpose, whether it's in a health space or, a pollen space. We wanted to release. So it seems like our schedule is absolutely jam-packed in terms of releases. Like you said, it's on a weekly basis. There is something, and we're trying to balance it as much as we can. I think that Anarchy Labs is going to be released early 2024, kind of not to take away from this. But the product's already done in terms of formulas, the flavors, number of products. As we're looking at right now, it's going to be about 4 products that's going to be released under Anarchy Labs. The names of the products, everything is pretty much done. The only thing we have to do is, to initiate the PO and, and work on labels. So if I wanted to release it, say, still in November, December, we can. But more than likely, it's going to be sometimes early, maybe in time for the Arnold Classic, because we're going to have a booth over there. So maybe around there, we'll see. But yeah, that's it.
That's a good point. And that's another thing I see mistakes, not to go on like I know we got to get going, Robert.
No, go ahead.
But that's one of the things I see too is, and I'm trying not to make this mistake, is people make a big investment into a brand, especially starting off and things like that. And what they'll do is they'll tell people, and we saw this so much during COVID and the supply chain issues that we had. People are like, they'll promise a launch date.
No,
dude, it never happens on the launch date. And then it was happening. They're building up all this hype, and then next thing you know, it's 3, 6, 9 months later, and they still haven't launched a product because of whatever reason. And one of the things that I thought about, and just exactly like what you're saying, is like, if you're in that position, like, don't launch the product just to make the money back because you're in a hurry to make the money back. Like,
absolutely.
launch it when the timing makes sense. Because like you said, if you're releasing Anarchy Labs, well, if you have important drops for a pollen, you don't want to take away, you don't want to cannibalize your own business. So it's like, what the hell are we doing here?
Well, since it's our show, basically I can say this, like in the next, this week we're releasing hydration, so it's one type of product, it's not very hardcore. It's not like, it's not even hydration. It's a flavor of a hydration. So it's just a flavor. Next week, as far as I know, if my memory serves correct, we're releasing something for gut health. So we're releasing that product next week. And then the following week, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to launch fish oil, which is also a health. And then if everything goes well, Assassin on the 15th. And typically when I announce something, I say, or people like ask me, the guy asked, when is Assassin launching? Even though the product is ready early next week, we can already pick it up, and we're still in August. I could easily say that, 100% it's going to be released on September 15th. But I said we plan to release, which means things can happen. Because when you promise something that is definite, most of the time, especially in this space, it depends on labels, on ingredients, on so many aspects. You can't. And that's the reason why I said, we plan to release. Anarchy Labs is definitely happening. We're bringing it back. I said we plan to release it end of the year. But you know what? That is obviously subject to change. This is not a movie release where a movie is already done 2 years ago and they know the exact date when it's going to be released. So, no, and to take it away from Assassin, from Bare Knuckle, from products that are definitely happening, we only have a few months left in 2023. Why would I bring something that I know is going to impact and going to affect some of the pollen products? And I still didn't figure out whether it's going to be direct to consumer or it's going to be maybe like NutraBio with Unbound, where it's going to be only for wholesale. We haven't decided that. So if I'm not sure of something, why should I, jump the gun and do it? Makes no sense.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have for sure. And then plus, there's probably another product that you're going to release. Speaking of supplement snacks, there's probably something else that's going to be in there somewhere. So you got a lot of stuff going on, man. And it is, people don't appreciate the type of shit that you are going through releasing all these products at the same time. So
yesterday Maria asked, because she handles one aspect of a pollen, and she asked me, she goes to me, can you explain to me how the process of actually making a product from A to Z, how it's happening? When I told her, I said, like, the whole process, that sometimes the idea maybe is born today, but the product is going to be released in a year. It's 100% possibility. 100% possibility. And something to plan. And then something that I'm kind of working with Kristen behind the scenes. We have an idea of certain things that maybe we want to do together. And right now it's an idea, and that idea, when it's going to actually happen, by the time people get it, if everything goes well and it's actually launched and released, great. But they have no idea how long it took to get to that point to release one particular flavor or one particular product or whatnot, and how many trials and how many orders of the same fucking sample. It's a whole headache, and that sometimes, like you said, it's not appreciated.
Well, and a lot of times too, collaborations have become all the rage, in our space. Some of these collaborations, I remember when it didn't end up being an official collaboration, but I remember we went to Core Nutritionals, and they showed me, they were like, yeah, we're working on this moonshine product. They were working on an official collaboration with the one Old Smoky, but that didn't like go through. It was like a year and a half, going 2 years later, when some of these collabs finally happened. Because like what you're saying, especially, and that's one reason I did a capsule product with this initial one. I want to do that's one thing I guess I can say that I'm working on is I want to do like individual like stick pack powder version. There was a formula that Man Sports came out with. It was like an orange juice flavor that was so good, man. And I want to recreate that for this. That way people can like wake up and have their brain. I don't want to give away too much, but I want to do a powder but the powder process is so much more difficult than the capsule product because you have to, I only did 1 round of samples with the capsule product. You're going to have to do, who knows? I mean, if you're lucky, you only do 3, 4, probably more like 10 to get a flavor right these days. So it just adds all those layers to the product, especially when you're doing powder formulas.
Yeah.
Is just,
last thing before we go, pistachio protein, the idea came about 2 years ago. The flavor was approved last year. Look how long it took to actually launch it, and it's just a fucking flavor. It's not even a formula. It's a flavor of an existing product.
And then people will be like, oh, they copied off Muscle Sport. Not that they did, but it's just like, yeah, okay, like we planned it like 2 years ago. So no, I totally get you.
All right,
guys.
All right, so guys, thank you so much. Like I said, we hope that we're gonna do this again next week or the following week, the latest. And thank you for those that are listening.
Yeah, we'll do it at least one more time before the event.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right,
Robert, guys. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you soon.